So we're starting today the Gemara, 3 lines from the bottom where it says Gufa. We were discussing yesterday a machlokes between Rav and Rav Kahana regarding a case where you have exactly 50-50. Klal Yisrael is divided, half are Toher and half are Tomei. What happens then? So here the Gemara quoted before a few braises about this. Now the Gemara brings back one of the braises with more details that it says there. So Gufa, here's the braise itself. Harei Shai Yisrael mechtzet Toherin and mechtzet Tmein. They were exactly half and half. So halalu oisen latzman, v'halalu oisen latzman. Like Rav said, so the ones that are Toherim bring the carbon themselves, and the ones that are Tomei bring it themselves. And Rav explained, we consider each half to be like Roiv. And if you Roiv, so the Toherim can bring, and the Tmein that are also Roiv, they can also bring, but they can't bring it together. Oitvin ala Toherim. Sorry, I missed 2 words. Hayu Tmein oitvin ala Toherim. If the Tmein are the Roiv, so then, afila echad, even if it's just one person more, yasa betumah, everybody does it betumah. Because then, once the tmein are the majority, so then I say that everybody has to do it together. Lefi she'ein carbon sibu chaluk. Because once the tmein are the majority, I don't divide Klal Yisrael, everyone does it together. Only if it's half and half, so then the Toherim are considered to be like the majority, so they can't join the tmein. But if the tmein are the majority, even one person, then everybody does it together. That if it's only one individual, then we don't say this. One person will not tip the scale to say that now the Tmein are the majority and everybody has to do it together with him. With them, that is. Why not? He brings a pasuk. So the simple pshat of the pasuk is: do not shech the carbon pesach in any of your cities. It has to be shechted in Eretz Yisrael, in Yerushalayim, in the Beis Hamikdash. But he darshins by just one individual causing that everybody should join them that are tamei. That's not enough. It has to be more than one person. So if it's just one person, it remains to be like half and half. Rab Shimon says that this halacha of Tmein, that we bring a carbon pesach for the tzibur that's tamei, afil shavit echad tamei. Even if it's just one shavit which is tamei, v'shar kol hashvatim tahirin, and all the other shvatim are tahirin, the one shavit is considered to be like a kohol that's tamei. Halalo eisen latzman, so that shavit which is tamei brings it for itself. Halalo eisen latzman, and the other shvatim that are tahir bring it for themselves. It's considered to be like half and half. My time with Rab Shimon. What's the source of what Rab Shimon said? Kosavar, Rab Shimon holds, Shavit Echad Ikri Kol. We find in the Torah that even one Shavit is called a Kohol. Rashi brings the pasuk by Yaakov, that when all the Shvatim were born, besides Binyamin, so the pasuk there says, Goy Kahal Goyim Yim Imcha. So we see that a Kohol refers even to one Shavit. So one Shavit that's Tamei can bring it Betumah. However, it's still considered to be half and half. That's Rab Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda goes even a step further. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, afil shevet echad tamei. If it's just one shevet that's tamei, v'shar kol hashvatim tahirin, and everyone else is tahir, yasu betumah. Everybody brings it betumah. She'ein carbon sibu chaluk. Because we don't make any division in Klal Yisrael when we bring the carbon pesach, and if there's one shevet, it's one kohol that's bringing it betumah, everybody together has to bring it betumah. And the Gemara now explains Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Reason is, Rav Yudah Savar, Shavit Echad Ikri Kohol. Like Rab Shimon said, one Shavit is a Kohol, so they can bring it Betumah. So V'havaluhu Palga Palga. If so, we consider that Shavit and the rest of Klal Yisrael to be as if it's half and half, that you have half Tomei, half Toir. And Rab Yehuda's opinion is, Ve'ein Carbon Sibu Choluk, you don't divide Klal Yisrael into 2 halves, including when it's half and half. So this is Rabbi Yehuda's arguing on the point in the beginning of the Braisa, which followed Rav's opinion, that when the tzibur is half and half, the each one has to bring separately. But Rabbi Yehuda says no, that if you have half and half, everybody has to bring it together. Va'avdi kulu betumah, and therefore everybody has to bring the carbon pesach together, betumah. Itmar, we learned that Rav said the following: Yisrael mechzet tahirin and mechzet tmein. If the Yidden are half tahir and half tamei, so Amar Rav said, what do you do? Metamin echad mehen b'sheretz. So you have to be metame one individual with a sheretz. So now the people that are tamei will be in the majority. You don't want it to be half and half. So the question is, Vamai, why do you have to do this? Didn't Rav before say, Ne'evdi hani l'chodayu? Hani l'chodayu. If it's half and half, what do you do? They could all bring the carbon pesach. They just have to bring it separately. The ones that are tar separately and the ones that are tar separately. Like Rav said, the Hama Rav, halalo eisen latzman, valalo eisen latzman. So why is Rav saying that you have to be metame one individual with a sheretz, that it should be majority tmeim? So Amri, the answer was given, Hacha b'maya skina, in the case where Rav said this, what was it speaking about? Kagoin shoy tmeim oitun al tahirin echad. The tmeim were a majority, they were one more than the tahirin. Right? So because it was one more, so therefore I have to be metame one person with a sheret. So the Gemara asks why? If you're saying that it's one more, so very good. So now it's roiv tmeim, nev the kul betumah. Let them all bring it when they're tummy. It's not half and half anymore. Says the Gemara, Rav is saying this according to Rabbi Elazar ben Masya. The Omar ein hayachid machriya es hatzibur l'tumah. One individual is not good enough to tip the scale for it to be considered that it's a majority of people that are tummy. It's still considered to be half and half. It's still like half and half if it's just only one more person that's tummy. So therefore you have to be metama one person.
Two extra men.
So when you're metama one person, then you'll have two extra, and then they'll all be able to bring it together. Says the Gemara, if so, the question comes back, the original question that we asked. According to Rabbi Elazar ben Masya, when you have half and half, but there's one more person that's Tomei, it's still considered to be like half and half. So our original question is still in place. Nev dahani l'chadayu. Let's do like Rav said. Let the ones that are Tomei bring separately, and the ones that are Toy bring separately. What's the problem with that? Why do we have to be mitame, one person with a sheretz, in order to make it more a majority that they should all be able to bring together? Ella says the Gemara, Hachi Kamar. Rav was saying as follows. And Rav was explaining this, as the Gemara will now say, according to Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Let's see. If there's a Tana, this Savala Ketana Kama, that holds like the first Tana of the Braisa, which was Rav's opinion. The Omar, Palgo, Loyavdi Kulu Betume, that when it's half and half, so they can't join each other. You can't have everybody together to do it Betume, because we consider each half to be like a roiv. So the Tahayrin are the roiv, they can't join the Tmein. The Tmein are the roiv, and they have to bring the carbon as well. So that's like Rav said. But also, V'sava like Rabbi Yehuda, but he also agrees to what Rabbi Yehuda said, the Amar ein carbon sibu chaluk, that we never divide Klal Yisrael into two different parts. Because we don't want a carbon ever to be brought by people that are Tar separately and people that are Tomei separately. Right? We had this before, and Rashi here explains it again, that it's a gnai. It's an embarrassment. You're sort of making a point that the people that are Tomei, their carbon Pesach is not as good as the people that are Tar, and therefore they're being brought separately. So Rabbi Yehuda holds you could never bring a carbon Pesach of people that are Tar and people that are Tomei separately. So now the problem is, these 2 points are sort of a contradiction. On one hand, you're saying that you can't bring it together because the people that are tired are considered to be like the majority, so they can't join the people that are Tomei. So therefore you have to divide it, like the Tana in the beginning of the Braisa says. On the other hand, Rabbi Yehuda says you never could divide Klal Yisrael. You always have to have them brought together because it's not right to divide it into two. So what do? Here, regarding this, Rav said, Mitama and Echad mem b'sheretz. What you should do is be Mitama one person with a sheretz, tip the scale that it should be the majority that are Tomei, and then everyone will be able to bring it together. The Ula says that no, you don't have to be mitama one person. You could do something else. You send one person away to a derech rechaika, so he won't be able to bring the carbon. He doesn't join the count. He's not there. He's not able to bring the carbon at all, so he's not part of the count. And that will tip the scale that most people that are there will be tummy to bring the carbon. The Gemara, why is Ula saying that you send this person away? Why didn't he agree to what Rav said, that you just make one person tomei and then you can tip the scale that most people are tomei? Says the Gemara, Kasavar, because his opinion is sheichtin v'zorkin al tmei sheretz. Even a person that's a tmei sheretz, you can shecht a carbon pesach for him. He can't come himself into the Beis HaMikdash, but what's a Tmei Sheretz? A person that's Tmei Sheretz is only Tmei until at night. At night he could eat the carbon Pesach already. So there's a machlokes, which we had a few times before, and it's going to come up again at the end of the Yomud, and it comes up later again. A person that's a Tmei Sheretz, he could eat the carbon Pesach. But the question though is, does he first have to go to the mikveh, and only then could you shecht the carbon Pesach for him? Or could you shecht a carbon Pesach even for a person while he's Tmei Sheretz, because at night he'll go to the mikveh later and he'll be able to eat the carbon later. So Ola held you could shecht a carbon Pesach for a person that's Tomei Sheretz. So it's not going to help you by being Mitame a person with a Sheretz to tip the scale that he's going to join the people that are Tomei, because you can shecht it for a Tmei Sheretz. He's not joining the people that are Tomei. He's like a person that's Tahir. Fragt the Gemara, but v'yitamenu b'meis. Fine, so Ula doesn't hold that it's going to be a good, it's not going to help if you make him a Tomei Sheretz, but why not be metamim to a mace, and then I'll tip the scale that it should be a majority Tmei mace. Says the Gemara, no, you don't want to do that, because matcheyu ata mechagigosei. A person that becomes Tmei mace is not Tomei just for one day. He becomes Tomei for 7 days. He won't be able to bring his carbon chagiga. So it's better to send the person away to go b'derech rechoika on Erev Pesach, and then let him come back and be able to bring his carbon chagiga. However, this person, even according to what Rav said, that you make him a Tomei Sheretz, so you're going to be doichim from bringing the carbon Pesach, because Rav's opinion is, when a person is a Tomei Sheretz, you cannot check the carbon Pesach for him. So you're being doichim from the carbon Pesach. Says the Gemara, no, Efshe the Ovid b'sheni. You're not completely being doichim from the carbon Pesach. True, if you're being metamim b'sheretz, he can't bring the Pesach now, the Pesach Rishon, but he'll bring the Pesach Sheni. Says the Gemara, if so, being metama a person b'meis, what was our problem? If you're going to be metama a person b'meis, he'll be tamei for 7 days. He won't be able to bring his carbon chagiga. Says the Gemara, but that's not true. B'meis nami efshe the Ovid b'shvi. He'll be able to bring the carbon Pesach on the 7th day of the Yom Tif. Why? The Havelei Shmini Shaloi. It's going to be the 8th day from when he became Tomei. You made him Tomei on Erev Pesach, right? So then the 7th on the 7th day of Yom Tif, which is Shvi Shal Pesach, 8 days after you made him Tomei, so he could already bring his carbon Pesach. He could already bring his carbon Chagiga. He's only Tomei for 7 days. So why are you saying that he won't be able to bring his carbon Chagiga? Says the Gemara, Kasava Ula holds that a person like this, that's Tomei, on the first day of Pesach, cannot bring a carbon Chagiga later. Why? Ula holds Kulu Tashlumin Derishay Ninu. The fact that you have 7 days to bring your carbon Chagiga, that's only if you were able to bring it on the first day. Really, the chiyuv is the first day. If you're an individual that was chayiv the first day, so then, if you didn't actually bring it, so all the rest of the days are there to give you the ability to be mashlim what you didn't bring on the first day. So therefore we say, the chazi b'rishayin, an individual that was fit, that was obligated on the first day, chazi b'kulu. So then he can be mashlim, he can bring it on any of the rest of the days. But chazi b'rishayin. But if he wasn't fit to bring the carbon on the first day, like this individual that you were metame, so then like chazi b'kulu. He doesn't bring it on any of the rest of the days. That's the opinion of Ula. Rashi brings it. This is a machlokes in the Gemara and Chagiga. There's another opinion there that says that they're tashlum and zelazeh, which means that really there's an obligation to bring it on the first day, and then if you didn't bring it on the first day, then the second day you have an obligation then, and on each day separately, if you're fit to bring it on that day, so you could be mashlim then. Mashenkin Ula says, no, if you weren't obligated, if you weren't fit to bring it on the first day, you can't bring it on any of the other days. So therefore he didn't want to be metame this person with Tmei Meis. Amalu Rav Nachman. So Rav Nachman commented regarding this machlokes between Ula and Rav, what do we do if we're trying to tip the scale to be able to bring betumah with everyone betumah? So again, Rav said what you do is you metama the person with Tmei Sheretz. Ula says you have to send someone away b'derech rechoika. So Rav Nachman said, Zilu v'amru leilu Ula. Go tell Ula about what he said you should do. Man tzayis. Who's going to listen to him? The okar siche or mashkenei. He's going to uproot his tent and the pegs of his tent. V'roit, and he's going to run away. You're going to have to find one person that's going to volunteer to go away to be b'derech rechoika in order to tip the scale for most of the people to be tamei. Who's going to listen to him? Who's going to be that individual that's going to volunteer not to be able to bring the carbon Pesach? So therefore the eitzah of Rav Nachman is not practical. Zok the Gemara, Itmar, we learned machlokes as follows. It's going back here to the halachas of the people that are tamei and the roiv and the miyut. Let's see. So there's another halacha, we had this before, a person that's a zav, so he's not included, the halacha by a zav is not the same like it is by a tmei meis. Right? By tmei meisim, if most people are tmei meisim, they can bring the carbon Pesach. By zav, that's not the halacha. If most people are zav, they cannot bring the carbon Pesach. So itmar, we learned in the Braise, ha yuru bon zavin, if most of Klal Yisrael were a tamei zav, or miyut on tmei meisim, and only a minority were tmei meisim. What's the halacha now? Omar Rav, says Rav, oison tmei meisim, those people that are tmei meisim, einam oison loy berishain v'loy b'sheni. They can't bring the carbon Pesach, not the first and not the second. Berishain loyavdi, they can't bring the first carbon Pesach, to have a miyuta, because they're only a minority, which is tamei. And when could they bring the first carbon Pesach? Only if they're the majority. Umiyuta loyavdi berishain. B'sheni nami lo yavdi. The second carbon Pesach they can't bring either. Because here's the rule. Kol heiche da avdi tzibur berishain. Only if there was a tzibur, if most of Klal Yisrael brought the first carbon Pesach, then Avid Yachid B'Sheni. Then there's an individual that can bring the carbon Pesach Sheni. But Kol Heiche, the loy of the tzibur berishain, if most of the tzibur of Klal Yisrael did not bring the first carbon Pesach, like over here, because there was Zavin, and they did not bring the carbon Pesach Rishain, loy of the Yachid, loy Avid Yachid B'Sheni. So then a Yachid could not bring the carbon Pesach Sheni. So therefore, these people that are Tzmei Mesim, they can't bring not the Pesach Rishain and not the Pesach Sheni. Amalu Shmuel, so Shmuel said to those that repeated to him what Rav said, Zilu Amru Leila Abba, go tell Abba. This is how we called Rav, with a name of honor. So he said, go tell him, but the Pasuk says, V'yasu b'nei Yisrael es ha-Pasach b'mayadai. Yidden should bring the carbon Pesach in its time. Here you're telling me that these people cannot bring it? They can't bring not the Pesach Rishain, not the Pesach Sheni. But the Torah obligates a Yid to bring it, either the first or the second. So what do you do with this pasuk? So Amalahu, so Rav told these people that brought him back the message from Shmuel, Zilu Amrule, go and tell Shmuel, Habat ki hava kulu zavin. What's if it happens that all of Klal Yisrael would be zavin? So Mayav Dislay, how are you going to fulfill this pasuk where it says V'rasa b'nei Yisrael sa pasach b'mayad? They can't bring the carbon. They can't bring not Pesach Rishon and not Pesach Sheni. There's Zavin. Nobody can bring the carbon. Ela kivin de loyefsha loyefsha. If it's impossible, it's impossible. The Torah didn't obligate you to bring it if you're tummy, if you can't. So hachanami loyefsha. Same is also here regarding these Tmei and Mesim that are in the minority. They can't bring the Pesach Rishon and they can't bring the Pesach Sheni either. So here, in this Gemara, you see a rule that it's saying that you only can bring the Pesach Sheni if most of the tzibur brought the Pesach Rishon. So based on this Gemara, it would seem that if Mashiach comes between the Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni, and most of the tzibur, no, all of Klal Yisrael that is, did not bring the Pesach Rishon, you won't be able to bring the Pesach Sheni. Because you only bring the Pesach Sheni if the tzibur, most of the tzibur, brought the Pesach Rishon. So if Mashiach comes in between, you can't. But the Rebbe in a Sicha brought the Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi clearly says that if the Beis HaMikdash is built between the Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni, you could bring the carbon Pesach Sheni, even though most of Klal Yisrael did not bring the Pesach Rishon. And the Rebbe pointed out, L'chayr our Gemara is arguing. But the Rebbe said, Lav Dafka. The Gemara here is talking about a situation where you had all the Yidden that are there, that are by the Beis HaMikdash, and they have a Tumah, which is deicha them that they can't bring the carbon Pesach. But today, the fact that we can't bring a carbon Pesach Rishon is not because we have any tumah that's doicha. That's not the reason. Tumah hotra b'tchuya b'tzibur. We would be able to bring it. It's only because of a side reason, which is the fact that there are goyim there that are not allowing us to bring it. In such a situation, the Rebbe said that even the Gemara might agree to the Bavli, to the Yerushalmi that is, that even if the tzibur did not bring the Pesach Rishon, you will be able to bring the Pesach Sheni. And that's why the Rebbe, this is the Sikha that the Rebbe said in Tavshin Chav Ches, where the Rebbe suggested or said that people should leave Yerushalayim because the carbon Pesach is a chi of Kodesh, and according to the Yerushalmi, even if you didn't bring the Pesach Rishon, you will be able to bring the Pesach Sheni, and could be the Bavli agrees as well. So if it's a chi of Kodesh, you should make sure not to be there. That year, the Rebbe felt that it would be possible to go up to the Har HaBayis and bring it. The following years, the Rebbe said already that it's not possible anymore. But this is the Gemara that's the source of this inyan that the Rebbe spoke about. Itma, we learned another machlokes in an opposite scenario.
Have a cool of Zovin. So what's the problem? If the Rav doch gut haben. If the Rav mentions Zovin, if the Rube,
yeah,
can acht betumen. Why should?
No, not by Zovin though. This whole halacha of bringing Rube betuma is only by Tmei Mesim, not Zovin. That's a limud dafke when get to Tmei Mesim. Itmar, so we learned the machlokes regarding an opposite case. Oh, you Ruban Tmei Mesim, most of Klal Yisrael were Tmei Mesim. Umiyutan Zavin, a minority were Zavin. So Ravuna says, Ein tashlumin lepesach haba betumah. There's no tashlumin, there's no Pesach Sheni if the first Pesach was brought betumah. So in this case, the first Pesach was brought by most of Klal Yisrael, which is Tameh. So those minority of Zavin that now want to bring the Pesach Sheni cannot. There's only a Pesach Sheni if the Pesach Rishon was brought betara. But Ravada Barava says, Yesh tashlumin lepesach haba betumah. Even if the first carbon Pesach was brought betuma by most of the people that were Tmei Meis, the Zavin, that was the minority, can now bring the Pesach Sheni. So how do we explain this machlokes? Should we say b'hakam miflagi? They're arguing with the point that we mentioned before many times. The one that says that you can't bring the Pesach Sheni. If the Pesach Rishon was brought betume kesavar, it's because he holds tume dechuya hi betzibur. When you bring it betume, it's only dechuya, which means that we push it off with difficulty. That the people that are bringing the Pesach Rishon betume, you can't compare them to bringing it betara. It's betumah, and we push it off with difficulty, but it's not really the regular Korban Pesach that's brought betara. However, the one that says that there is a tashlumim for a Pesach that's brought betumah, kisavar, he holds tumah hutra betzibur. When a Pesach is brought betumah, it's just like it's brought betara. It's the same thing. It's totally mutter, and therefore, if they're considered to be like tahayrin, so the ones that are Zavin, the minority that want to bring now the Pesach Sheni, they could bring the Pesach Sheni. That's what seems to be the machlokes. But Amri, the Gemara says, they said, no, this is not necessarily the machlokes. Like the Kula Alme Tume the Chuya Betzibur. Everybody holds bringing the Korban Pesach Betume is not the same like bringing it Betara. It's only the Chuya. It's pushed off with difficulty. But a Baha Pligi. The argument here is about this point itself. Mar Savar. One opinion is Tahare mitchia. If the Korban Pesach Rishon is brought betara, then those that couldn't bring it betara are pushed off to the Pesach Sheni. But tumalem matchia. But if it's brought betumah, if the first Korban Pesach was already brought betumah, so if you were able to join, you joined the Pesach Rishon, but you're not pushed off to the Pesach Sheni. Umar Savar, and the second opinion is afile tumah nami matchia. Even a Korban Pesach Rishon that was brought betumah, and you couldn't join them because they were tmei meis. And you're a Zav, and a Zav cannot bring the Korban Pesach Betumah, you still get pushed off to the Pesach Sheni, and you have a second chance to bring the Pesach Sheni. So they're arguing about this point itself, whether a Korban Pesach Rishon that was brought Betumah, those that couldn't join, could they bring the Pesach Sheni? Itmar, the last case the Gemara brings, an argument about a combination over here of different categories of people. Hayu Shlishtan Zavin, a third of Klal Yisrael are Tomei Zav, Shlishtan Tahirin, a third are Tahir, or Shlishtan Tmei Mesim, and a third are Tmei Mesim. So what do we do here? So Amar Rabmani Bapatish, Oisan Tmei Mesim, those that are Tmei Mesim.
Third or half or
to take account, yeah. So over here we're talking about a case that it's exactly a third and a third and a third. So you have to take account before Pesach. So Rabmani Bapatish says, Oisan Tmei Mesim, those that are Tmei Meis, they're going to be stuck. They can't bring not the Pesach Rishon and not the Pesach Sheni. Similar to what we said before. They can't bring the Pesach Rishon. Why? Because Higdilu Zavin ala Tahirin. Those that are Zavin are combined together with the Tahirin. Deloy Avdi Betumah. Because the Zavin cannot bring their Korban Pesach Betumah. So when I look at Klal Yisrael, I combine the Zavin together with the Tahirin, and they are 2/3. They're the Raiv. So have a Tmei Mesim Miyuta. So the Tmei Mesim are on the minority, or Miyuta Le'av the Berishain. The ones that are in the minority cannot bring the Pesach Rishon. So that's why the Tmei Mesim don't bring the Rishon. B'Sheni Le'avdi. But then when it comes to the Pesach Sheni, so the Tmei Mesim, which are the Miyut, should be able to be pushed off to the Pesach Sheni, but they will not be able to bring the Pesach Sheni. Why? Because Nitzrifu Zavin in Tmei Mesim. At this point, I combine the Zavin that now are tied already, and they want to bring the Pesach Sheni. I combine them together with the Zavin, with the Tmei Mesim. That is the Loy of the Berishain, and both the Zavin and the Tmei Mesim did not bring the Pesach Rishon. So Havalahu Ruba, at this point, they are 2/3 of Klal Yisrael, and Veruba Lematchel the Pesach Sheni. And the Raiv will not be pushed off to the Pesach Sheni. So it comes out that they can't bring not the Pesach Rishon and not the Pesach Sheni. Zok the Mishnah. Ha-Pesach shenizrak domai. A Korban Pesach, you sprinkle the blood on the Mizbeach, and then you find out through Tomei that the blood was Tomei or the Pesach was Tomei. You find out that it was Tomei. You didn't know in advance. So Hatzitz Meratza. This is the halacha of the tzitz. We learned so many times. Here's the Mishnah where it says that the kayin that wears the tzitz, it has the effect that something that was brought betumah and it was unknown to you, it's Meratza. That it should be accepted. Nit mahagov, if a person was tamei, not the dam or the pesach itself, the person, the owner, the bailam was tamei, einat tzitz meratze. The effect of the tzitz does not work for the person that's tamei that it should be accepted. Because it was said, Hanazir v'oiseh Pesach, a nazir that has to be tahir. That's the whole thing of a nazir, that he's not allowed to be metamet tmei meis. So, but if a nazir became tmei meis, or v'oiseh Pesach, a person that's bringing a carbon Pesach, hatzitz meratzeh, the effect of the tzitz will only be al tumas adam. If the carbon itself, the carbon Pesach, the blood became tamei and it was not known to you. But ve'ein hatzitz meratzeh al tumas aguf. It's not meratzeh regarding the tumas aguf. Once there's tumas aguf, so Rashi here explains, the person is b'chlal not roi to bring the carbon. If you can't bring the carbon, the tzitz doesn't help for that. If you could bring the carbon, elamai, there was a problem with the carbon itself that was unknown to you, for that the tzitz helps. But regarding the person himself, even if you didn't know, if he is not roi to bring the carbon, so then the tzitz is not effective for that.
So
However, yeah, someone found that, they realized exactly. Nitma, however, now the Mishnah says, Nitma tumas hatohaim hatzitz meratzeh. If the person himself became tamei betumas hatohaim, what's tumas hatohaim? Literal translation of tumas hatohaim means that there was someone that was buried in the depth, very deep, and you didn't know that there was a psak kever there, which means you became tamei from a suffix tumah that there was no way you would know. In such a case, there's actually a halacha l'Moshe Misinai that the tzitz does take effect. If you became tamei from a regular tumah, elamai was not known to you maybe, so then the tzitz does not take effect. But if you became tamei from a suffix tumah that was not known to you, a tumah satahaim, of that, the tzitz does take effect and the carbon is accepted. So, the Gemara, what do we see from our Mishnah? Taime the nizrak va'achakach noida. The Mishnah is saying that they sprinkled the blood and then they found out that there was a tumah here. So then the tzitz takes effect, that it's accepted. So you can understand from the Mishnah, but if you knew before that it was tamei and you sprinkled the blood b'mezid, even though it was tamei, you weren't supposed to do that, and you went ahead and you sprinkled the blood, loy meratze, then the tzitz does not take effect. I'll ask you a question from what it says in the Braise. So the Braise says, Al ma tzitz meratze. What's the effect of the tzitz? Al adam, al abosa, al chelev, on any of these things that from the carbon that shanitma that became tamei. And the Braise says clearly, bein b'shoigig, bein b'mezid, bein b'oinis, bein b'rotzen, bein b'yachid, bein b'tzibur. So the Braise is clearly saying whether b'shoigig, even b'mezid, b'oinis, or even b'rotzen, yachid tzibur. So I clearly see in this Braise that even if it was done b'mezid, the effect of the tzitz, it happens. So how could we say in the Mishnah that it's only if it was b'shoigig, if it was nizrak damay v'achakach noida? Amar Ravina says, no, there's a different shot in this Braise. Tum asoi, when the Braise here was saying that it makes no difference b'mezid and b'shoigig, what it was saying was regarding how it became tamei. Tum asoi bein b'shoigig bein b'mezid horza. Whether it became tamei b'shoigig or it became tamei b'mezid, so either way the tzitz will take effect. Zrik kasai. However, when it comes to the actual zrika of the blood, so that I say b'shoigig only if it was not known to you that it was tamei, it was b'shoigig, then horza, then the tzitz takes effect. B'mezid, however, if it was b'mezid loy horza, then the tzitz does not take effect. So the Mishnah was speaking about the zrika itself. Only if the zrika of the dam, which is tamei, was done b'shoigig, then it takes effect. The Braise was speaking about how did it become tamei, and for that the Braise says it makes no difference how it became tamei. This is one pshat. Ravina actually disagrees with this. Ravina has a whole different pshat here. Ravina says, Tum asai. Sorry, Rapshila Amar, that is. I just read Ravina. Rapshila disagrees with this, and he says, Zrikasai, when it comes actually to the zrike, bein b'shoigig, bein b'mezid, horza. If you did a zrika while it was tamei, even if you knew in advance that it was tamei, and you b'mezid went ahead and did the zrika anyways, horza, that tzitz does take effect. Tum asai, it's actually when in the way that it became tamei. On that I say b'shoigig horza. If it became tamei b'shoigig, then the tzitz takes effect. B'mezid loy horza. If you made it tamei b'mezid, the tzitz does not take effect. So Rav Shila holds the exact opposite. And the Gemara explains now how we learned the Mishnah and how we learned the Braise. So Ela hadik tani bein b'shoigig bein b'mezid. When the Braise says that there's no difference, it does not matter if it's b'shoigig or it's b'mezid. Hachikama. The pshat in the Braise is as follows: Nitma b'shoigig. If the blood became tamei b'shoigig, viz zarkai, and then he sprinkled the blood bein b'shoigig bein b'mezid. And when he did the zrika, whether it was b'shoigig, whether it was b'mezid, even if he knew in advance that there was tamei, and he did the zrika, horza, the tzitz takes effect. So when the Braise said bein b'shoigig bein b'mezid, it is referring to the zrika. And even if you knew in advance it still takes effect. Now, what's the pshat in our Mishnah? So the Mishnah is saying that only if you sprinkled it and only you found out afterwards. So time de nizrak v'achakach noida. So as we were medayik before, only if you found out later, then the tzitz takes effect. Aval noida v'achakach nizrak loy. But if you knew in advance and then you did the zrika, it does not take effect. So you see that if you did it b'mezid, the tzitz does not take effect. So Rab Shila says, don't be medayik this way in the Mishnah. Hu adin, the truth is that it's the same halacha, da filen noida v'achakach nizrak, even if you knew it was b'mezid, and then you did the zrike, same thing will be, the tzitz will take effect. The only reason why the Mishnah says it in the scenario that you did not know in advance, it's because of what it says in the Sefer. In the Sefer it talks about the case where the person became Tomei, and that over there the tzitz does not take effect. And over there the halacha is that even if you only found out later, nevertheless, the tzitz does not take effect. Loi, the tzitz has no power. So Katani Reisha Nami Nizrak Vachakach Noida. So the Reisha of the Mishnah says the same case. The only reason the Reisha said this scenario is to be similar to the Sefer, because over there the tzitz does not take effect even if you did not know of your tumah in advance. But really in the Reisha, regarding the carbon itself, the dam or the Pesach itself, even if you did it b'mezid, the tzitz takes effect. So this is a machlokes here between Ravina and Rab Shila, whether the tzitz takes effect if you did the aveda b'tumah b'mezid. The next thing it said in the Mishnah was nitme tumah satahayim v'chulu. If you became tameh from something which was safek tumah, a tumah that you didn't even know that there's tumah there. In such a case, there's a halacha l'Moshe Misina that the tzitz does take effect. Rami Bachama asked the question. The Mishnah was talking about the person that's bringing the carbon, the owner of the carbon, that he became tameh. But the question now is whether we apply this also to the kohen. Kohen amiratza b'karbon esayin. The kohen that's bringing the karbonis. Hutra loy tumas atahim. Do I also say that the tzitz will have the effect in a case where the kohen became tameh with a tumas atahim, with a suffix tumah? Or maybe this doesn't apply to the kohen. And according to Rashi says that the Gemara that's asking this question is only talking about a carbon Pesach or a carbon Nazir, for a Nazir, which the Mishnah was speaking about. But other Mefarshim say, other Rishayim say that this is talking about any carbon. And what's the question over here? Mi amirinon, do I say ki gemiri? When is there a halacha l'Moshe Misinai? Tumas atahim, that bebailim, it's only that the tumas atahim, that the tzitz takes effect, that it's going to be good. That's only regarding the owner of the carbon. But bekayin loy gemiri. On that, the halacha l'Moshe Misinai was not said. Or perhaps bezivcha gemiri. The halacha l'Moshe Misinai was said regarding any carbon that any person involved with this carbon became tameh with a suffix tumah. So therefore, loishna b'kayin, loishna b'bailim. Makes no difference if it's the kayin, makes no difference if it's the bailim. Anyone that's involved with the carbon that became tameh from a suffix tumah that's called tumas atahim, the carbon will be accepted. That's the shaila. So Rave said, Toshima, I'll bring you a raya, the Tani, because Rab Chia said as follows. Lo yomru tumas atahim. When they said this concept, that there's a suffix tumah, that it sits as meratze, it was only said, Ella lemeis bulvad. Only said for the tumah of a mace, not for other tumas. That's what Rab Chia said. So now, the Gemara explains, Meis l'mute mai. When he said that it was only said for a suffix tumas meis, what is this coming to exclude? Lav, don't you think, l'mu'ute tumas atahayim de sheretz. That means that if you have a suffix tumah of a sheretz, in such a case, the tzitz does not take effect. So the Gemara now, who are we speaking about? Are we speaking about the owner of the carbon, or are we speaking about the kohen? You name it bebailim. If you're going to say we're speaking about the owner of the carbon, ubeman, and regarding what carbon are we talking about? That the owner can't be tameh. There's only two karbanas that you can't be tameh, the Pesach and the Nazir. Any other carbon, if you tameh, you can bring a carbon. You can send someone to the Beis HaMikdash to bring the carbon for you. So what we're talking about over here, an issue that the bailim is tameh. So you're talking about a Nazir that can't bring the carbon while he's tameh. Mi mahani be. Does it make any difference if he's tameh with a tumas sheretz? What difference does it make? Ki yamus meis alav amar achmana. A nazir is not allowed to become tameh to a mace. A nazir that became tameh to a sheretz could still bring his carbon. There's no issue at all. So if we're saying that we're coming to exclude the tumas sheretz, we can't be speaking about the bailim. Regarding the bailim, tumas sheretz is totally irrelevant. Elo ba'isa Pesach. So we must be speaking about a person that's bringing the carbon Pesach. And the carbon Pesach, the bailim that bring a carbon Pesach, cannot be tameh tumas sheretz. But is that true? So we mentioned before on Amr Aleph, there's actually a machlokes about this. There's one opinion that says that a person that's Tomei Sheretz, you cannot shech the carbon Pesach for him, even though he's going to become tired at night. But you can't shech the carbon Pesach for him while he's Tomei Sheretz. So then we understand that we could say that this is talking about the Bailim. But but the opinion that says that you could shech the carbon for a person that's Tomei Sheretz, and Amar Aleph, the Gemara wanted to say that that's Ulla's opinion. So hashte, even if he knows that he's Tomei Sheretz, you can still bring the carbon Pesach for him. So for sure you can bring the carbon Pesach if there was a suffix of a Tumas Sheretz, which is called a Tumas Setahim. So there's no issue. So again, the question remains, if we're saying that we're excluding Tumas Sheretz, that the tzitz does not take effect, we can't be speaking about the owner of the carbon, because both by the Nazir and by carbon Pesach, according to this man Amar, it's irrelevant. He could still bring the carbon. Elolav b'koyin. So who were we speaking about? This Braisa of Rab Chia that was saying that we're excluding Tumas Sheretz. We're talking about a koyin. A koyin can't be makir of a carbon if he's Tomei Tumas Sheretz. He can't do the Aveda. And we're talking about the koyin. Shma mina hutreloi Tumas Hatahim. So we see that Rab Chia is teaching us that the heter, the effect of the tzitz regarding a suffix tumah is not only on the owner, but it's also on the koyin. So this is the Chayra Raya. Rav Yosef, so Rav Yosef says, Loi, it's not a raya. When Rab Chia said that the effect of the tzitz is only for Tumas Meis, it's not coming to exclude Tumas Sheretz. La'olam be'bailim, really we are talking about the owner of the carbon and not the koyin. U'be'pesach, and it's talking about a carbon Pesach. U'le'me'ute Tumas Hatahim de Ziva. It wasn't coming to be memayet, a suffix tumah of Sheretz, it's coming to be memayet, a suffix tumah of Ziva. As Rashi explains, when you have a Zav that's on the 7th day, when he's a Zav, so he has to, if he saw a Ziva twice, so then he only becomes tired on the 7th day, but then on the 7th day there's a suffix. If he's going to have another Re'iyah on this day, so then it's a suffix if he's going to be Tomeh or not, and then he's going to have to count over all the 7 days. So the Tumas Tahim, a suffix Tuhuma of a Ziva, that the tzitz does not have an effect. It only has an effect on the Tumas Meis. But we have no Raya regarding a coin. Regarding that, we can't prove anything.